All right. Hello, everyone. So welcome to our virtual event space. My name is Allie. You might recognize me from our Lake Forest Park location. I'm your host for this evening. I am so excited to be introducing Marty Wingate and Ellie Alexander here to discuss their cozy new murder mysteries, The Librarian Always Rings Twice, and The Cure for What Ails You. But before we get into the good stuff, I just want to say on behalf of everyone here at Third Place Books, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you who may not know, we are an independent bookstore with 3 locations in the Seattle area. And as much as we miss having these events in our bookstores, it has been such a delight to expand this online program to connect readers and authors in a virtual space. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And of course, for buying books. Your support is what makes all of this possible. So if you haven't gotten your hands on copies of the books that come up this evening and you would like to, I will be linking the books in the chat. For those of you in the Seattle area, come on in, grab copies off the shelf. You can place an order online and come pick them up in the store. Or if you're not local or you're not leaving the house, we of course ship. So go ahead and follow those links in chat over to our website. While you're on our website, I definitely encourage you to check out some of our other upcoming events. You saw some of them in our opening slideshow. We have an exciting roster coming up, including some events in person, which is very exciting. I believe our next one is Steve Olson, the author of The Apocalypse Factory, and I think it's next week. So I definitely recommend checking those out. If you'd like to stay in touch with our community, you can sign up for our newsletter. It's a weekly update about events, exciting releases, our online book clubs, and of course, follow us on any of the major social media platforms. We are at Third Place Books for the quickest updates and recommendations. So tonight we are here for about an hour, and towards the end we will be taking questions. So if you have any questions, which we very much hope that you do, go ahead and leave those in our Q&A box. It should be either at the top or bottom of your screen. It is different than the chat box, which is great for virtual applause and connecting with each other. I absolutely invite you to share where you're tuning in from or your thoughts about the books in chat. Oh, I see we've started already. Hello, welcome, Elizabeth. When it comes time for questions, though, please do make sure that those end up in the Q&A so we can most easily find them. While you're in our chat and question spaces, I want to remind you to please lead with kindness and refrain from any inappropriate behavior or harassment. And finally, should any technical issues arise, we will work as quickly as we can to resolve them. And I appreciate so much your patience and understanding. And hello, Beth. So I think at this point, it is time to get cozy, settle in, because without further ado, I am so thrilled to welcome back the USA Today bestselling author, Marty Wingate, author of Glamour Girls, a slew of great gardening books, and several wonderful mystery series, including the Potting Shed Mysteries, the Birds of a Feather series, and of course, the new first edition library series. In the newest edition, The Librarian Always Rings Twice, a mysterious stranger threatens the legacy of our heroine's late benefactor, forcing her to dig deep, uncover the truth, and catch a killer. In conversation this evening, I'm so thrilled to welcome back another wonderful local cozy mystery writer, Ellie Alexander, author of a number of great series, including the Pacific Northwest Mystery Series, the Bake Shop Mystery Series, and of course, the SLOAN KRAUSE series, which continues in tonight's book, The Cure for What Ails You, in which Sloan must finally contend with her past and the murder related to it. So thank you both so much for being here. I'm going to pass the stage off to our authors.
Hi, Allie. Thanks so much for having us.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. I said that I will do chat tonight, so we'll do it, right, Marty?
That's right. And I already told Ellie that I'm highly impressed that she can do that because I can barely speak. If I have to speak and also read things, I'm just I won't be able to be coherent. So yay that you can read those.
And well, I'm throwing the caveat out there in case I mess it up, then you know that.
That's all right then. We'll excuse a lot.
Exactly. So we're here to celebrate your newest release, Marty. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about first, just like how you got into writing, because I know it's not just cozies for you. It's an abundance.
It's a lot of that. That's a question I have for you too, Ellie. So you get your chance to answer after I do. I'll bet that most writers today, most published authors today will say, I've always been a writer, even though we may not have been published for many, many years. I can remember writing stories when I was a girl. I wanted to be Jo March, of course, from Little Women. Didn't we all?
Yeah.
But I took a rather roundabout way of getting to where I am today. I started off, I got a bachelor's degree in drama.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a job. And so I got a master's degree in speech pathology. And for many years, I was a speech pathologist, and that included working in public schools and also moving to Ireland and working with physically handicapped children in Dublin at a big clinic in Dublin. And so that sort of became, I worked at a deaf school for a while. And so that when I came back to the States, working with physically handicapped kids was really my emphasis. But then I also, always having been a gardener of one sort or another, I became a master gardener, a volunteer master gardener. And that just led me down another road. And I ended up getting a master's in urban horticulture, where I decided my emphasis would be public education. And that's when I started writing garden articles. And
right, because you were writing like how-to garden.
How-to garden articles, that's right, yes. And books. I have 3 books out that are garden how-to books. But so then I have a friend who started saying, you should write a garden mystery. That would be really good. And I said, I don't write fiction. I wouldn't know where to begin. And she would mention this every once in a while. And so I blame her for everything, obviously. But when I finally thought, well, okay, I'll write a garden mystery. And then it's like, sometimes the world you think, oh, I'm going to write about this. And it just, suddenly it's there. It creates itself. And that's what happened with the Potting Shed Mysteries. And this is the 3rd mystery series I've worked on, the first edition library series. And I find I absolutely love it. And I will say that in the garden mystery series, in the Potting Shed series, anybody who knows me from my garden writing days knows that all of the gardening information is correct in those books. By golly, it's like, you know what you're talking about when you're talking about making beer. I'm sure that someone would call you on it if you got anything wrong. So that's, I always make sure the plant names are correct. I'm not going to say put a plant in the wrong place. Now with this series, with the first edition library series, it's based on a library of books from the Golden Age of Mystery. And so I have some of my favorites in the Golden Age of Mystery, but I am not an expert by any means. And so I made sure my main character wasn't an expert either, so that I could learn along with her. So this is the 3rd book. Hayley Burke finally knows a little bit. She knows about Agatha Christie and she knows about Dorothy L. Sayers because those threads were in the first 2 books. And this book has some ties to a Daphne du Maurier book. And here's the thing, Daphne du Maurier isn't necessarily on the list of Golden Age of Mystery authors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, romantic suspense, kind of gothic sometimes. Some people will include her, but usually she isn't.
Not so much, okay.
But the library in the mystery series was created and is in the house that was the house of Lady Fowling, Lady Georgiana Fowling, who died before the first book starts. She was 94. She had a long and very interesting life. And Daphne du Maurier was one of her favorite authors, and so she's included in the library. So it's really nice that I can blame a character in the book for the fact that there's Daphne du Maurier in the library.
That's right.
A dead character. She can't even defend me.
Yeah.
And so it has tones of Frenchman's Creek in it. So that's how I got from Joe March to where I am today.
It's so brilliant though. And I love that Hayley knows just enough to be dangerous.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yeah. Unless she stumbles in front of Mrs. Woolgar, the secretary of the society. And Mrs. Woolgar was a friend of Lady Fowling's and her personal assistant. And so she feels like she owns all the proprietary information about Lady Fowling, and she would know if
Right.
Lady Fowling would want this to happen in this society or not. So
Totally. Beth is saying this is on her TBR list. How can you go wrong? You can't, because it's libraries, it's a British cozy, it's set in Bath. I always feel like you need to say Bath, but really it's just Bath, right?
you know, I have a friend from Yorkshire who, when I said Bath, she says, "Oh, I'm so glad you pronounce it that way."
Oh, good. Okay.
Sounds a little bit too uppity, even to the
right. Totally.
So now I want to hear your road to writing, Ellie. I'm very
well. It's very similar, as you will soon find out, which is, yes, so my first mystery that I wrote was in second grade. It was titled The House on the Haunted Hill, and that semantics was right, although wrong, right? Is the hill haunted? One doesn't know. But I grew up reading anything I could get my hands on. We went to the library like every Friday, my mom and I would come back with a stack of everything, including cozies. And I knew that I would like to write, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. So lots of journals, lots of unfinished manuscripts. I minored in creative writing in college, but I also got my degree in speech pathology.
Another connection we have.
I know. And I spent 10 years working in early intervention. And I really think, I don't know if this is true for you, but I do think that helped informed my writing, because in speech, you have to be such a careful observer of where things go wrong and fall apart. And I think I use a lot of those same skills when I'm writing. Do you feel like that?
I certainly feel like that. And, you know, one question I have had from people about this series is, well, do you know about working in a library? Do you know about libraries? And I'm so proud to say that, first of all, when I was in 5th grade, when the class, you know, once a week, we got our time to go to the school library and the library. But when you got to 5th grade, you could volunteer to work at the counter and stamp people's books.
Oh.
And this was my goal in 5th grade. All I wanted.
Done. Yeah. What else do you need?
And so that was very exciting. But in addition to that, I actually did work in a library. When I got my master's degree in urban horticulture here at the University of Washington, I worked at the Elizabeth Miller Library, which is a gardening library. It's just fabulous. And so I do know more than stamping books now.
But the power of that stamp, to just be able to be like,
this digital stuff is not as much fun as stamping.
No, the old card catalogs, the smell of books. Yeah. So my segue was in right after my son was born. My mom was actually sick with Alzheimer's, and I was reading a lot of cozies to escape. And I kept thinking in the back of my head, like, oh, what if I wrote one? But I had been I'd been working for the Alzheimer's Association at that point, like using the other end of the spectrum of my speech pathology degree. And in the back of my head, I just kept hearing like, oh, I want to write a cozy, but I'm doing this serious work in the world. And then, I don't know, I just finally decided it was time to make it happen. And then I think once you start, you open up that creative well, and it's hard to shut it down.
Exactly. I think that's the case. You know, someone says, how do you get your ideas? I don't know, but they're not stopped yet.
Right. It's almost too many ideas.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'll put this one here. I'll put that one there. I'll put that one on the back burner in my brain. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, I mean, this title is just genius. The Librarian always rings twice.
Well,
because this book just came out.
It did. It just came out last month. And I've had 3 agents in my fiction writing career. I didn't have an agent when I wrote garden how-to books because it's a smaller community of writers, and there are very few writers that have agents for that. But I knew, you know, I was and it's not my fault that I've had 3.
It usually is not, yeah.
And nothing ended that well. Anyway, my second agent, who
that could be a plot for a future book.
Yeah, really, that's what people tell me. My second agent, who retired a few years ago, and that's how I got my new agent. But my second agent was the one who said, the story is yours, but covers and titles are committee decisions.
Yeah.
You know that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always had a say in the cover, and I have learned to be not too fearful about it. I've had my agent say, now, you know, people are not going to analyze every single inch of the cover to see if it fits with the storyline, right? As far as titles go, sometimes I have a title, and a lot of times I don't. And so I'm open to suggestion. I had a reader think of a title for one of the Potting Shed books, Midsummer Mayhem. She was the one that came. It's about an outdoor production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I was so grateful because it was perfect. I think, why couldn't I come up with that? Anyway,
Right.
In this series, the first book, The Bodies in the Library, the first book has an Agatha Christie thread through it. So that obviously makes sense. And there's only one body in my book. Tell you right now. We started counting with Agatha Christie, and so that's why it's plural.
I know the body count can go high quick. Yeah.
And with the second book, Murder Must Advertise, the thread in that book is a Dorothy L. Sayers book, Murder is a Must is my book. Her book is Murder Must Advertise. It's my favorite Dorothy L. Sayers. So they took a little twist on that. For this book, I know it doesn't sound like it has anything to do with Frenchman's Creek or Daphne du Maurier. What it has to do with instead is how many times Hayley has to answer that front door buzzer. Every day, that thing buzzes, and she never knows who's going to be on the other side of it. It could be, you know, it could be her boyfriend. It could be one of the board members from the First Edition Society. It could be the police. Or it could be Charles Henry Dill, and she's never very thrilled about that. So that's where the title came from.
So clever.
But you have all of your Sloan books have that great. Now, do you think of your titles?
Usually it's a family affair. Like, we'll be around the dinner table, and my son is now a senior in high school, but when he was younger and I was first starting to write, I was worried that we were going to get a call from the elementary school like, why is your child so obsessed with beer puns and murder puns? Like, yeah. But you're right. I mean, a lot of times I will come up with something that I think is genius, and then it is usually by committee, and maybe the powers that be above decide otherwise. So I've learned over the years not to get too attached potentially to a title.
Yes, that's the best thing.
But they're so fun. I mean, who doesn't love a good pun?
I know. I think the last title I thought of the title before I thought of the book.
Oh,
that hardly ever happens, was the fourth book in the Birds of a Feather series, Farewell My Cuckoo. Just came into my head, and I thought, okay, how? And I swear I sort of built a story around that.
That's brilliant. I love that. Okay, well, so this is kind of a good segue into, I'm always fascinated by research, and I personally feel, because one of my long-running series, The Bake Shop Mysteries, that I write is set here in Ashland, Oregon, where I live, which is home of the Shakespeare Festival in this beautiful, you know, mountainous town. And then the Sloan series is set in Leavenworth, Washington, right by you. And so although I don't live there, I visit there quite often. But then it really feels like cheating because I don't have to stretch my imagination much. You, on the other hand, have set your books across the pond in Bath. So, like, what goes into research? I know you have traveled there, but in the pandemic, did that really, like, force you to shift your writing process? Because you're already a few books in at this point in time.
Right, that's right. Well, it's true. I had planned in March of 2020, we had planned to take we weren't going to run the narrowboat, but we were going to be on a narrowboat. Narrowboats have play a big role in this book. And I was very sorry that we couldn't, but we've seen narrowboats and I know about them and I've watched some great YouTube videos. I'm sorry I don't remember these two women's names. There are two women that have a series of videos on YouTube. They live on a narrowboat. And so they're always explaining what they do and how they do it. Oh, I love watching those. So for the narrowboat, I had to do all of my research online, but we have spent a lot of time in Bath. And so I kind of wanted, I love Peter Lovesey's Peter Diamond series. That's his policeman, Peter Diamond. They're all set in Bath. But it's a police procedural, you know, and it's very
not quite cozy.
Not quite a cozy. They're not awful. I mean, I just love them. I like Peter Diamond, and Peter Lovesey, the author, is fabulous. But I wanted to show a different side of Bath. I mean, I know when I can read his books and know where he is, what he's talking about. But I wanted people to be able to read these books and, if they ever visit Bath, think, oh yeah, across the street from the assembly rooms, that's where the exhibition space was, you know, things like that. Right. So a lot of it was research that we'd done before. In The Librarian Always Rings Twice, there's a bookstore mentioned several times. Hayley goes to, because they printed Lady Fowling's Francois Flambeau series, her own detective series, George Bankton, and they are a rare and collectible, fabulous bookstore down by the rail station. And they do rebindings and things. And that's why I thought, but you know, I wasn't there to say, oh, by the way, I'm putting you in my book. And so next time we go, I'm going to have a copy of the book for them.
Yeah, you'll be like, look, yeah,
you are in here. But you know, I hope that you do this occasionally too, Ellie. Even though the Bath I write about, I will insert the exhibition space in Murder is a Must was across the street from the assembly rooms. The assembly rooms are real. The exhibition space is not. But the one thing I did that's quite different is that I put the police station back in Bath. And you can read the Peter Diamond series and you can see when the police station was closed, it was on Manvers Street, and moved to one of the bigger, it's like they have a big headquarters area, Avon and Somerset Police, and it's out of town, and that's boring. I needed my policeman right there in Bath. And
they have to be in the action, yeah.
I put the police station back where it was. The place is called a one-stop shop now, where you can go get a fishing license, or you can go get this or go get that, but it's my police station. So yeah. I do know about Bath, and the other places I've written about too. When we spend a lot of time in Britain, and we love it. And so that's why I love to set my books there.
And it's not so bad to have to do that in the name of research, right? I mean, yeah.
Not too bad. Now, what have you changed something in your Bake Shop series? Have you changed something in Ashland?
I have. You know, I made a commitment when I was starting to write the Bake Shop that I wouldn't put anything that was really negative. Like if I had a space that had some sort of negative connotation, I wouldn't use a real space for that. So like where I imagine the Bake Shop to be and the police station, those are all real. And I love when readers come to Ashland and they're like, oh, I know, like you're saying, all those spots. But Jules, the pastry chef, AKA, you know, crime solver in that series, she has a nemesis, Richard Lord, who owns this horrible hotel across the street, and he's just this not so lovely character. And so I made that City Hall. So there's not really a hotel there, it's City Hall. So that's like his Merry Windsor is fake. But I did learn from a historian that that space was originally a hotel in like the 1900s, and I never knew. So it's always weird. Whoa. How that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That could be like you could have a prequel far, far in the past about that.
Oh, I love that idea. So good. Okay, so this is kind of along the same lines of process, because I think one question that always comes up for me with readers, and I'm sure it probably does for you too, is just sort of like, what's your day-to-day writing life like, especially because you're not the last few years getting to fly across over to Bath and be there hands-on. And I'm super curious with all of your garden history and that, if that plays it all into your daily routine, do you have any sort of like visual things, or do you write from like a seasonal perspective at all?
Oh, that's a good question. As far as my day-to-day work goes, I was, before the pandemic, not working at home. I was not writing at home because I'm easily distracted. And, I would think, oh, I'll put the laundry in, or the cats needed something. And so I would leave the house as if I were going. In fact, our upstairs neighbor once said to me, oh, I know what your work schedule is. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to work. I am.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, hey.
Yeah, I would either go to the local library and sit there and work, or I would go to the commons area at Third Place.
Okay.
Big open area there, just fabulous. And I would work there. But then the pandemic came and everything was closed. And I thought, I'm going to have to learn how to write indoors. But instead, and people who heard me last year talk about books, what I would do is every morning I would go out and sit in the car.
Oh, wow.
And I would write in the car. I have pictures of me writing in the car. My husband took them. I'm looking out the window. I have my cup of coffee with me.
Here I am. Yeah. At the office.
I did that for most of 2020. And then when it got cold, I came inside and I just forced myself to, I can write at home. It's fun.
Sure.
But and I don't even have, sadly, I don't have anything that inspires me. I just sort of get to work. These people are talking in my head.
Uh-huh.
Need to get them out.
Get out on paper. Yeah. I just have this vision of you like, in a lush garden, like a very charming, so don't ruin it for me.
Oh, okay.
So just lie. Yeah.
One of those backdrops. Everybody, instead I have my books.
Right. Well, that works too. That's good.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of the library houses? Because I don't really feel like we have that here in the United States as much.
We don't have the separate room that's a library. We see them in movies, and we see them in British murder mysteries. You walk into this big house and there's a whole room that's a library. But lots of people have seen pictures of Bath, and so you may have seen a picture of the Royal Crescent, which is this beautiful Georgian terrace of houses. So it's all one building. It's either they're in curves or sometimes they're straight. And it's like this in London a lot too, that the houses are not wide, they're high.
Mm-hmm.
So there are often, and it used to be that the kitchen was in the basement. So it's like Downton Abbey,
Sure, yeah.
Except that house is wide too. And then the ground floor would have a couple of rooms, and then you would go upstairs and possibly, in Britain, the ground floor is the ground floor, and you go upstairs and that's the first floor. So and on the first floor might be a drawing room and another room. So they're really about 2 rooms, unless you expand and buy the house next to you and knock through the wall. There's really about 2 big rooms, maybe 3 on each level, on each floor. And so in Middlebank House, where the first edition library is, you walk in the door and there's a big entry area. And Lady Fowling had it remodeled because she was leaving the first edition society in the library there. She knew that was what she wanted it to be. It had been her house, but remodeled. Now when Hayley is there and you walk in, and Mrs. Woolgar's office is first, it looks out the front of the building, and then Hayley's office is in the back, and then there's a little kitchenette, and then there are stairs up and there are stairs down. The stairs that had gone to the basement is now, we don't call it a basement because Mrs. Woolgar wouldn't put up with that. It's the lower ground floor. And
the lower ground floor. Nice.
Sounds so much nicer. She lived there. And, but it's a daylight basement. Don't say that to her. and because the land falls away so she can see up. And behind the terrace where Middlebank House is a gravel walk. And so I've borrowed that from Bath because there is a gravel walk. It's listed on the maps when you look at it in Bath. And along that gravel walk, I don't have this in my books, but in real life, you can walk into the back garden of a house. They let you, the people that own it let you walk in. It had been a Victorian style garden, you know, like bedding out and stuff. And they were doing some remodeling to the house in, I think, the 80s or 90s, and digging down, and they discovered that the Georgian style garden laid out in paths and stuff was still underneath. This is, you know, you're always finding that in Britain. Start digging in their Roman artifacts and who knows what. So they have restored the Georgian garden in this.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's off the gravel walk anyway. On the gravel walk. Now I can't even remember what I was talking about.
It's all good. We were talking about the fact that, you know, I think especially in the Pacific Northwest, maybe in like, I don't know, like somewhere in New England or some of the earlier like big mansions, but we don't really have the like full house library, right?
No. But it is, so at Middlebank House on the first floor, that's where the library is. And it was Lady Fowling's library, and it's got one of those huge library tables and floor to ceiling books. It's wonderful. And then up one more flight is where Hayley lives. She gets to live on site. It's part of the perks of her job. She gets her accommodations there.
Right, because I think a lot of readers might think librarian and vision, you know, you with your little stamp. This is like next level personal library.
And as a matter of fact, it's one of Hayley's battles with Mrs. Woolgar to try to open the library up to the public. You know, who would think? People in a library? Oh, please.
Absolutely not.
Woolgar wants nothing of that kind, but Hayley has been chipping away at her little by little. And in this book, it's the first time every Wednesday afternoon, the library will be open to the public. So it's very exciting.
She's getting her way. I like it.
No, until that guy shows up who says he's the son of Lady Fowling.
I love it so much.
Well, I have a quick, you know, you were talking about what you changed in Ashland, and I want to know what you changed in Leavenworth, because, you know, you've got the big Dare Keller.
Yeah.
You've got the little nano brewery, and you've got so are these set in actual places on the streets in Leavenworth?
They really are. And, you know, so my vision for Der Keller is where Icicle is. Icicle is like the big brewery in Leavenworth. And that was really my inspiration because one of the owners of it, Pam, she was one of the first women in brewing, and she's really done so much. She started this society called the Pink Boot Society that is really just gone gangbusters, not only here in the Pacific Northwest, but all over the country, to sort of like raise and elevate women in all levels of the craft. So that's where I imagined Der Keller. And when I first started writing the series, that was sort of the only brewery in town. But Leavenworth has had this like little burgeoning of growth lately too. And so the last time I was up, which was a couple of years ago, I walked around the corner of Front Street, and lo and behold, here is a nano brewery that is basically like Nitro in real life. And my husband and I were just sort of like, have we stepped into another dimension? I don't know what's happening here. Yeah.
Fun.
I know. Good stuff. Okay, I know we're getting to chat in a minute, or questions in a minute here. So I want to keep going on writing just for a second and ask you about, you also write historical. So you have this breadth, right? You've done the whole nonfiction with how-to books, and then the cozies, and then this whole lovely historical fiction piece too. And I'm curious, from a writing perspective, how do you think that impacts you? Like, does it help to be able to switch from genre to genre? Does it open you up creatively? Do you ever get confused with characters?
I have not yet been confused, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I really loved writing Glamour Girls, which is set in World War II in, of course, Britain.
Which also just came out.
It came out last year, and it's about to come out in paperback.
Paperback, yeah.
On Tuesday, that's right. And I really, really love that. And And I think that had been somewhere inside me for a long time. But what happened was my agent said, did you see, it was 2018, Mary Wilkins Ellis, 101 years old, was one of the Spitfire pilots. She was one of the women pilots, and she had just died. And wow, wouldn't, World War II is always interesting. Wouldn't it be fun would you be interested? And I'm so suggestive. I said, I don't know, let me think. Okay. And then the story, well, of course I had the framework of the war. That was pretty easy, but I had Rosalie Wright's story. This is a story of one of the women pilots. And my husband and I are both interested in World War II. So we visited a lot of World War II sites over there, even where his father was stationed in Lavenham in Suffolk. And so that was all great. And so I feel like, and that was a standalone. So see, there's something else different, not a series.
Right.
So I like knowing that was the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I love series because I love the characters' arcs, as we go.
Totally. Yeah.
Isn't it fun to see? I mean, look how much SLOAN has changed.
Right.
So that was something really interesting I like. So now I have my second historical fiction is coming out in August. It's called The Orphans of Mersey House. So I'm looking forward to that. I like historical stuff. I like research. And so there we are.
There we are. I know. I'm such a huge fan of historical fiction. I do not want to try to write it myself at all. I just know it's not my forte, but I appreciate you keep writing them and I will keep reading them.
I don't go too far back in history. I will say the Orphans of Mersey House takes place in 1957. And I keep telling people, I'm sorry, I don't really consider that historical.
Right. I know, where's the cutoff? Yeah.
But my friend Candace Robb writes the very popular Owen Archer series, of course, which takes place in medieval York. Now, that would take some research. I would be afraid to do that, but she's a medievalist, and so she understands all that.
And to get the language right, and that's next level of research, I feel like. Yeah, definitely. Do you have unfinished manuscripts? Do you have unpublished books? When you're talking to new writers, did you right out of the gate when you decided to make this shift, just go straight to the cozy and write one right away? Or do you have stacks of stuff not finished?
I knew it was going to be a garden mystery, and I started, and I chose not only I choose the gardening because that would be easy. Gardening in England, I understood that. I made my protagonist a 50-year-old woman who moves from Texas to England. And so she's an American in England. So there we are. I was pretty much, and she worked for the Dallas Arboretum, and I'd been to the Dallas Arboretum. And so I started off, and I actually got, the first publisher was Alibi, which was a digital only imprint from Penguin Random House. And so they're not taking books on anymore. But so my first series were digital and audio only. But I was able to sell the first 3 books to Alibi. And so I already had, I think I was writing book 2 when I got the deal. So I just kept on going. I just
go. Yeah.
But what happened was then Alibi stopped, closed their doors. They're still selling the books online, but they're not, in the market for books anymore, new books. And I had number 8, Potting Shed number 8, almost totally written. I thought, oh my gosh, nobody wants to pick up a series in the middle. You know that.
Right.
No, because they don't get anything out of it.
Right.
And so I actually finished that and put it up myself. I
was going to say, can't you do it yourself, right?
Bittersweet Herbs, it's out there. So now all the people that have been asking me, what happened to Prue and Christopher? There they are.
Right. I know. Yeah. That's so hard because we don't always have a say as authors, especially if we're working with some of the bigger houses. So I think, readers will be like, well, why didn't that go? Well, I wanted it to, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. I tried. Yeah. It's so true.
It's hard to get those people out of your head.
It is hard. And especially if you, I think one of the things that we tend to do as writers is, we're planning so far out in advance, not just in terms of the book that, you're seeing come out, but also those story arcs in our head are usually longer than, a year. We're talking a few years out. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to move into questions in just a minute. I see that we already have some queuing up. But I have one last writing question for you before we get to that. I always find this interesting, and especially because we have this very similar history of a love for libraries and our speech therapy, which is, if you were going to offer advice to your younger writing self, what would you tell her?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure what I don't think I would say. I don't think I would advise to do anything differently.
Yeah.
I think that I started writing fiction when I should have started writing fiction.
Yeah.
But you know, we have all of that experience to use. And that, I think, bodes well for us. You know, we can always see, it's like you said, you can see the depth in things. And so I would probably just say, you know, keep reading. That's what I would tell myself.
Yes, absolutely. Keep reading. No, I think that's so great. I totally agree. And I think sometimes there's this idea of like, you know, that you have to have a specific writing degree or all of this experience, where life experience, it all plays into our writing. You can't,
right.
There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. True.
So true. Okay, let's see. Let's open up our Q&A. Okay, Elizabeth wants to know, when will your next book be out? Why don't you start and then I'll do mine next.
Yeah. Well, too bad we didn't get to how many series you can write at one time, Ellie.
I know, right?
You might hold the prize for that. So the paperback of Glamour Girls, which actually came out last year, the hardback, and now it's coming out in paperback next week. And then the next book out is The Orphans of Mersey House, the next historical fiction, and that's in August. And I am hard at work on a new idea. So,
ooh, a new idea. I love it.
And
that's so exciting. Yeah, let's see. For me, my next project is a standalone book. It's called Lost Coast Literary. And it features a young editor who inherits her grandmother's estate and learns that her editing pen has a touch of magic. So it's women's fiction and magical realism. Totally new for me. Like you, it's been so fun to write a standalone and something that is outside of my mystery brain, because I just delivered my 27th mystery, which is like, how is that even possible?
Right.
And then my next bake shop is Donut Disturb, and that comes out at the end of June. And then I'm working on a holiday SLOAN right now.
Oh, wow, that's great. And you also have several short stories and novellas out too, that are, some of them are related to your series. And
yeah, so actually those were a COVID project. When we first, fully shut down with the pandemic, I was on Instagram and Facebook, and all of my favorite musicians were doing these like concerts. And I thought, oh, I wish I could do something. I wish I had a skill. And then I was reading a choose your own adventure book, and I thought, what if we did a live, like, a Zoom or a Facebook Live with readers? And so those were all interactive projects that we did. But I'm loving novellas right now, and I'm working on a couple of shorts on my own too. I think there's something right now about like our brain space and a shorter story. I don't know if that's true for you, but yeah.
Read it through. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Jennifer Jenslow says she's a high school teacher, and she's really intrigued that you have a degree in theater, Marty. And I was going to ask this too. So Jennifer, I'm glad you did. How do you think that background in theater has influenced your work as an author?
I think it's added greatly. I really do. I loved working in the theater. I've done a little bit of community theater after that, but I went to New Mexico State, and as always, real people inspire a lot of characters. Now, the funny thing is, I don't know if you get this, but people will say, I have a friend, I actually copied everything about her and put it on one of my characters in the Birds of a Feather series. And I said, Susan, you're in my book. And she read the book and she said, who am I?
Who am I? Yeah, always.
We think that they're perfect. And so my theater degree, strangely enough, I had two people that I knew in college at New Mexico State many years ago who showed up in Midsummer Mayhem, which is just, like 4 years old, a couple of years ago, pandemic time. I don't know when.
Right.
But I think that it gave me even more different kinds of people to look at, real people, and then characters in the play. I read more internationally. And also I think it helped, how some people, not us, I think we're doing really well in public, but a lot of people don't like to talk in public.
Right.
And I think my drama degree helped, or I was just that kind of person anyway, and I wanted to be on stage. I don't know.
Right. But so I'm curious, like with that, because so much of staging is like, actually staging it out and that presence. Do you do any of that like physicality at all when you're writing something?
I think about it and I think it through, and I don't know about you, but that's a very difficult, the scene, there's going to be a fight scene or something. We don't put that many fights in our books, but there is some action.
Sure.
And to be able to describe that so that people won't be confused.
Yeah.
And I have my writing group to give me feedback on that, thank goodness. But I think, yes, I think staging scenes, like we all had to take a directing class, if you were getting a major in drama. And so I had to do staging, and yeah, I think that helped. I hope.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And then I'm also assuming with acting, some of it is probably how you find your way into a character's head, right?
Yeah, because you do want to, it sounds so trite, but you want your characters to be real. They're real to us. We want them to be real to the reader.
Yes. And see, this is a cautionary tale of writing about a real place, because literally not a day goes by when I'm like, I should just pop into Tort and get a coffee from Andy. Oh my gosh, that is like not stop. Like, yeah. And you would think I would be used to it now. No, still not so much. Okay, let's see. That's a great question too, Jennifer. Thanks for asking that. I was thinking the same thing. Elizabeth wants to know if there's a new book in my brewery series coming out, or is that one finished? So this tags onto your experience. That one did not get renewed by my publisher after so many books, and I had a whole plan in my head of what was going to happen. So
yeah, because there were big things afoot.
I know. And it kind of came as a total shock to me. So I am doing that one myself too, like you. I'm taking a page out of Marty's, because that's really sort of the beautiful thing about the landscape of publishing that we're living in. It's pros and cons, right? But it's nice to be able to be like, no, I need to finish this story for myself, and I have more that I want to do with it.
Yeah.
So, yes, Elizabeth, there is going to be a novella in the spring, and then I'm going to do a full book later for the holiday season.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. We need more holiday cozies, right?
No, I did write a short story, a Potting Shed Christmas short story 3 years ago, and I had great fun doing that. I didn't think I would. It's kind of it's 10,000 words. So, some people think that that's too long for a short story, but.
Oh yeah. See, I'm always curious, like the short story versus the novella. Yeah. So that is like that you could read in literally like one sitting at 10,000 words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, let's see. We have another question from Joanne. Joanne wants to know, Marty, have you considered mixing historical fiction and a mystery? Being the dedicated researcher you are, it seems like it might be a good match. I agree, Joanne. And I love a good historical mystery. I've read them all. So,
well, I may have a historical.
Are we going to learn something tonight? Okay, yay.
Tonight, sadly. Sign up for my newsletter, everyone.
There you go. Sign up.
I am looking at historical mystery series, and I'm hoping that something set in 1920 London.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I've been reading a lot of Jeeves and Wooster, and to get in the mood.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but do you ever feel at a loss for ideas of stories?
Not so far. Not so far. I have at the moment. Now, I won't say I always have them stacked up, because at the moment I'm thinking, oh, I would like to write another standalone, and I wonder what it would be. So I just kind of have to have that question in my mind until something snags on it.
That makes sense. Is there any part of you that would want to go back to writing anything that's nonfiction?
No, I like it.
No. Yeah. No.
It's much fun making things up.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like once you get a little taste of being, well, and like you're saying, where you're like, I can just take that police station and put it right back in Bath. It doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you have any research trips in mind?
Well, we're heading back to England.
I mean, like for sure.
In March.
Okay.
Well, I will say I tried this before. I thought, oh, we'll go in January, and I booked everything in January, and then of course couldn't go in January. And I contacted all the, because we like to rent a little apartment, instead of staying in hotels all the time. Contacted all the people we booked, and they all changed the dates with no change fee. They said that's just fine, So we're masking up and we're going.
I love it. Yeah. So great. And will this be your first time like doing any big travel since the pandemic started?
Yes, yeah. We've gone as far as Oregon just to visit family.
Yeah, we're kind of the same. We've done driving trips only, like coastal, like Northern California, Oregon, Washington. But my son is a senior this year, so we are also like in that college process and trying to figure that piece out. So I'm hoping that maybe in a month or so things are gonna open up a little bit. Yeah. Let's see. I think we got to, I think that gives us, I think we went through all the questions. You all good? Does anybody have any last burning questions that you need to know?
Well, I will tell you one thing, Ellie. I did want to mention that when we, my husband likes to go on brewery tours when we're in England. He loves a good English ale, loves a good bitter. Please put a bitter in one of your, I can't remember who made it. If he hears me, he'll stick his
he'll be like,
oh. Someone made a beer called Yakima Gold.
Ooh, okay.
And when Leighton was on a tour, he was on one of the brewery tours, and they were showing him what hops they used. He showed him a big bag of hops from Yakima, but they pronounced it Yakima.
Oh,
and we thought that we got a good laugh out of that. And then I thought, oh, how many things do we mispronounce over there?
Totally. Yeah, right.
Just as well as we can laugh at them.
I know. I remember when audiobooks, my audio narrator reached out the first time, and it was things like, it's not Willamette, it's the Willamette River, or like, you have Wenatchee. How do you say Wenatchee?
Yeah.
Siskiyou. Yeah, Snoqualmie. So many names that, yeah.
Squim is a good one.
Squim's a good one. It really is. We need to do a like book and beer tour. I love the idea of like a book and pub crawl. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be nice.
When you're in England, you can just like raise a little pint and be like, hi, Ellie, here I am.
Yes, how fun. I'll take a picture.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, that's great. Luann, thank you for coming. Thanks. I'm going to say that in the chat too. Thanks so much. It's been so fun. We love third place books. Supporting our independent bookstores is so important.
I know. Oh, there's Allie.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back.
So we are about at the end of our time this evening. So I'm just going to reappear briefly to say thank you all so very much for joining us this evening. For any of you in the audience who would like to get your hands on copies of The Librarian Always Rings Twice or The Cure for What Ails Us, I'm going to go ahead and relink them in chat, so we're not scrolling around like crazy here in the last minute. So there are those. Go ahead and follow those links. Let us know what you thought of this event, either in person or on any of your social media. We always love to hear from you. Ellie and Marty, Huge thank you for being here this evening. It has been an absolute delight, always. Do you have any last things you'd like to say before we say goodnight?
Thank you. Thank you all. Those of you who are here tonight and those of you in the future who look it up on YouTube.
That's right. Yeah, agreed. Congrats to you, Marty, on that new release.
Thanks, Ellie, and congrats to you on all the upcoming books.
Yeah, you bet. And we have to send a special shout out to Missy, who is on the live tonight because it's her birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Happy birthday, Missy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think with that, I'm going to say one more huge thank you. And shall we let the waving commence?
Bye. Bye. Happy reading.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.